switch on the Germany France at Orleans. 2,300 miles on the coast. And they heat it. No, they get you moved.
So their name
Get up
was
at 6 o'clock in the morning and then you're on the bus by 7 or 8.
John? Did you find out where that dinner was?
It's about 9:30.
No, Ernie's still working on it. He's gonna check tomorrow. I think it's at McDonald's or something. I was gonna say, the county's kinda got the same money. Yeah, the McDonald's downtown probably? Swordfish someplace? Probably at the canal then.
I'm glad to see somebody else is disorganized.
Oh, yeah. Boy, the Europeans like cheese.
Yeah.
There's also much cheese in all my life. Cheese and wine.
Well, hey,
Man.
I know.
We don't wait for anyone.
We don't wait for anybody.
Okay. Call to order Newman City Council special meeting, June 18th, 2002. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here together tonight. Please help us to make the best decisions for the people of this community. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tom. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Parker,
Just in time.
Applegate,
Hit the back again.
Martina,
Present.
Santagita,
Present.
and Mayor Reed.
Present. Any communications from staff to begin with here? No? Okay. Item number 6, items from the public. Do we have that on the... There we go. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it would be appreciated if you limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on a posted agenda may be addressed for the general public at this time. However, California law prohibits the Council from taking action on any matter which is not on a posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the City Council. Any non-agenda items someone wants to talk about? Okay, we'll go on to items from the public, agenda items. Do we have that? There we go. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor. In order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak, any person addressing the council be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor grants a longer period of time. And when you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Item number 7, public hearings, declaring 7A, declaring the results of the assessment ballot tabulation forming Newman Industrial Park Maintenance Assessment District, ordering maintenance work therein and confirming the diagram and assessment and providing for the levy of the annual assessment therein.
Mr. Mayor, this item needs to be continued until your next meeting due to the fact that it requires action by the County of Merced, which they have not yet taken. So the recommendation should be that you open the public hearing, take any comments, and then take a motion to continue the public hearing to your June 25th meeting.
Right. We'll now open the public hearing. Any comments on item 7A? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, continue to July.
I'd like to actually make a comment, Mr. Mayor, on this particular item. And
That'll
I'll
be
direct
quick,
it,
Tim.
direct it to staff. Where are we with the county since it wasn't on their calendar for today? Are we looking to see it on their calendar by the 25th of this month?
I got a comment, actually I went over there to Merced County today and they noted that they are scheduled to put this on their agenda to record the map on July 2nd. They have changed some things. They're actually saying now that they're not going to require the assessment district to be done by that date. For some reason, they changed that, even though I hope to have it done by that date anyway, because I want to have it done. They're also saying that they're not requiring us now to have the improvement plans done by that date. Again, those should be done by that date. We received our improvement plans back from them yesterday with we thought all the corrections made that they had requested, and there's some new things added to that they had not put on the first set of plans that we submitted. So we've got to make some more changes now before we can complete the improvement plan.
So what I'm understanding and what I'm hearing from you, part of the changes that they were requiring initially, they're somewhat no longer requiring. However, they're adding some additional contingencies that we don't have covered.
Yeah, there's two separate things. One is the subdivision improvement agreement that we will adopt. Initially, that subdivision improvement agreement stated that we had to have, which the subdivision improvement agreement has to be adopted with before the map can be recorded, or concurrently with recording the map. What they did is they had two items in there. One was that the improvement plans had to be approved, and also that the assessment district had to be adopted prior to adoption of that subdivision improvement agreement.
Which we've got.
Well, we've started the process. Yeah, the improvement plans, as I mentioned, just today we thought we were done with them, or yesterday I picked up the plans, brought them back again because they said they still weren't there. We looked at them. Some of the things that they put on the plans now are new things that were not on there before, and that's why we've got to go back and make some new changes, some additional conditions that they're putting on that they didn't when we initially submitted the plans. The other thing is the assessment district, which was in the agreement initially. They're now telling us we're not going to require you to have that done prior to recording the map or prior to adopting the agreement. But what they're saying is going to be up to us to get it adopted, which means it would behoove us to get it adopted prior to selling the property, because then you've got more than one property owner and there's more of a process you have to go through.
So in other words, have us have the maps adopted, the tentative maps adopted with the county prior to the actual purchasing and transferring of the property.
We have to have the map adopted. That's
Right.
But what I'm saying is I think we need to have the assessment district done prior to selling the property also, and that's why I'm moving forward with that and trying to get that resolved with them.
And the definitive date we're looking at now is July 2nd?
July 2nd is when they have told me they've scheduled it for recording. And they gave me a copy of the development agreement, or the subdivision improvement agreement, which looks acceptable to me now. I just got it yesterday and I'm reviewing it. I also need my city attorney to agree, to look at it. Assuming everything is okay with that, that will be on your agenda on next week on the 25th, so that by the time they get it, we've already approved it, and it's ready for them to approve with the recording of the map on the 2nd of July.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Clea. I mean, we're all trying to push that through to expedite this process because of the pending businesses over there that are ready to go. So
The other information
as
that
much as we can.
perhaps I can add here quickly, one of the items that we are looking at right now, and actually our city attorney is working on an agreement, is an agreement that we looks like we can possibly do, which would, if this gets drug out any further, we would actually lease, it would be two parcels, which would be all of the land on the east side of L Street down there that we own. We would lease those to Norbert Rocha and have an agreement which would allow him to begin his work. He could go ahead and go in and do work. And then once we finalize everything with Merced County, he would then purchase the property and we would be done with it. We're looking at that as a possibility. I think that we're going to be ready to go with it anyway before he gets in there to go. He's still making some final changes on his plans and stuff. But just in case, we're going to move forward with that, and you'll see that at your next meeting, hopefully on the 25th, as long as his attorney approves the agreement.
Well, I think it's important to have a contingency plan, which
Yeah.
you've just explained, and I also think it's important that I ask that particular question because I
Sure.
have no clue about that.
Sure.
And so I'm appreciative of that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move that we continue this item to our next agenda meeting.
To the 2nd of July. Right? Is that correct?
Actually, no.
June the 25th.
This one can, well,
This,
July 9th, right?
this is the one you mentioned that they wouldn't get to
Actually,
till the 2nd, so.
yeah, actually, this one you should probably now continue till July 9th.
So our
Because
first meeting
they will not, I'm hoping that they will take action on this on July 2nd. And if they do, then we can't take action until they do. The soonest that they will be July 2nd. It's possible that we could do a special meeting on July 2nd, but I don't think it's necessary. It's 1 week in there. I don't think it's going to make a difference.
Okay, well then I amend the motion to continue it until our first meeting of July 9th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. There's no consent calendar. Into regular business, item number 9A, discussion and approval of city newsletter format. Any comments from
Mayor?
council members who've seen it?
We have a presentation, if possible, by our intern, Brianna Dodds, and she would
Okay.
like to explain some things to you and have you approve if that's all right.
You want to showcase this?
You ready?
Okay. Honorable Mayor and council members, as the city manager, Cleve Morris, has said, I'm here to present to you the city format for the news.
Brianna, would you state your name?
My name is Brianna Dodds, and I'm an intern over at City Hall, and I'm doing the newsletter for the city.
Is your father in politics by chance?
Yes, my father, Richard Dodds, is the mayor of Patterson.
Oh, I thought that name was familiar.
Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, there are some time constraints with this current newsletter. We have a mailing list already prepared, but if we postpone the publishing date until July, we would have to update that list, and that would postpone the publishing even more. There's also the issue of increased postage. Postage rates will increase June the 30th, so we need to expedite the publishing of this newsletter as quickly as possible. I did some figuring of some numbers, and our costs would actually increase by 5 cents per newsletter, increasing our overall mailing costs by $103.40. Next slide, please. As I said, we're here to discuss the format, and we would like to have a newsletter that has similar content so that citizens can easily recognize this as the official city newsletter. We would like to have each newsletter contain one historical article, one safety article, one article introducing city employees or elected officials such as yourself, 2 articles on city activities or information pertaining to the season, and that is very flexible, 1 section for recreation information, and 1 section for West Side Theater events. Next slide, please. There's also the issue of printing. The newsletter is already at Index Printing. They're just waiting for your approval on printing that. What you each have at your stations is the final draft, although Index Printing does have to insert some graphics. We discovered that their graphics are superior to ours on the computer at the City Hall. They have a wider selection, and theirs print much better. We would like to print this on cream 70 offset paper with a nice dark blue ink. Next slide, please. And the main question is, what will this cost? The printing is about $530. The mailing labels are about $20. Mailing seals approximately $33, and postage is about $671. And as I mentioned earlier, postage rates are going to increase. That would increase our costs by $103.40, and our total is $1,254. Next slide, please. So my question for you is, what suggestions do you have on this current newsletter and on any future newsletters?
Brianna, will this be 4 pages as shown here, or will it be 2 sides, 2 pages?
2 sides, 2 pages.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions or suggestions for Brianna?
I'd just like to commend you on your effort, and all of these cost considerations. The $1,254 will be minus the $103 if we go ahead and expedite this, approve it tonight.
Yes,
And your labor was free, right?
that is correct. I am working for free.
Thank you. It's very well done, and again, I'd just like to commend you on your effort. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the city newsletter format, and the only addition I would add to that motion that if there's any discretion at the council for any future changes, that it be done at this level. But otherwise, it's very well laid out in my opinion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Brianna. Good job. Item number 9B. Discussion regarding building at 1349 Main Street.
Mayor and council, if I can just mention quickly, Mr. Kelly Hislop, who's the owner of the building, asked me to report that he is required to be out of town this week, and he's in, I think he said Omaha?
Omaha, Nebraska.
And therefore he requested, he doesn't have a problem with this being on, he just requested that if possible it could be brought back at the next meeting so that he could address it.
So would it be appropriate then if we just go ahead and continue it to our next meeting?
Right, July 9th.
Whatever you'd like to do.
I'm in agreement. It's fine.
No problem.
Okay,
So move.
so moved. We don't need a motion on that. Item number 9C. Reject bids for Newman Memorial Building roof and authorize staff to seek new bids for Memorial Building roof project. Ernie?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. As stated in the city manager's report, went out to bid for a new roof for the Louis J. Newman Memorial Building, and we didn't do very good. We only received 2 bids. One was from Vernon Enterprises from Houston for $41,000, and the other bid was from California Commercial Roofing Systems from Tulare for $36,155. However, the low bidder did not meet the roofing material and the warranty specifications. When we went out to bid, we just used the public notice sections in the index and the Modesto B, and then we also used the yellow pages. In an effort to solicit additional bids this time around, I've contacted the rep for the Duralast, the representative. As a matter of fact, he faxed me over quite a few of the contractors in this area. I received that fax yesterday. He's also going to encourage those contractors to bid, and we're also going to place it on the Builders Exchange listing. So staff recommendation is to reject these bids that were submitted and authorize us to go out and get additional bids.
What happened to the roofer that did the theater building? Did he not?
He didn't bid it, even though we sent him all the specifications and tried to encourage him, but for reasons unknowns to us, he didn't bid.
The specifications you just outlined with the rep and also the building industry for roofing, that'll give us a wider pool, you think? A wider pool of bidders directly targeting roofers?
Well, the Duralast Roofing the Duralast Roofing manufacturer has specially trained contractors, roofers, to work on that type of roof. And this is why I need to work with the representative, because not all the roofing companies are knowledgeable in this type of roofing, and they don't have the credentials. They continually train these people into these type of roofing
This rep
materials.
will have access to a number of independent contractors.
Yes, he does.
Sounds like a good plan.
Ernie had a question. The budget amount, where would that figure derive from?
That was one of the budget estimates that I personally submitted and placed into the budget, and as you can see by the bids we received, I was at about 70%. So, but I'm confident though that we'll get much better bids this time around.
Very good.
Ernie, you obtained that from talking to some other contractors, I believe, though, when we initially put that budget amount in, it wasn't just a stab in the air. We talked to roofers to find out where that, what it would cost to redo it.
I did that, and I also talked to some of the building inspectors, and they pretty much concurred with this figure.
No, there's no doubt in my mind that you have a good idea what the cost should be, Ernie.
Well, I took a look at West Side, the theater, and that was for $38,000. So, Memorial Building more readily accessible in a smaller roof. I just figured that the cost had to be much less.
Thank you.
Maybe the contractors for the theater found out that their price was a little low.
Never know.
Okay, any other questions for Ernie? Okay, can we have some direction on this?
Yeah, I'll move reject bids for Newman Memorial Building roof and authorize staff to seek new bids for Memorial Building roof project.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 9D, authorize staff to advertise for bids for the industrial park project. Cleve, did you want to?
Yeah, I'll handle this. What we're doing here, as I mentioned earlier, we had hoped to have the plans approved by this time based on our submittals to Merced County. However, they are still not. But what we were hoping to do is ask council for approval to move quickly with this. All this is authorizing staff to call for bids. So we will go out and once the plans are approved, which we hope to have done either this week or the first part of next week, and then of course it'll be depending, hopefully this time Merced County approves them. So as quickly as they're done, rather than wait for the next council meeting to review them again, we would like authorization to go out to bid on the project so that we can move as quickly as possible with it. What you have in front of you in your staff report is an estimate on the project. The engineer's estimate on the project is $1,242,400. We have cut back the project in a couple of areas. This will include doing all of M Street. We will improve the intersection at Merced Street and L Street, because if you recall, there's quite a dip in the road there. We want to take care of that so that it's better for truck traffic going through there. And then we will do Industrial Way and the extension of L Street down to the end of the industrial park. And this estimate, the $1,001,242, also includes the drilling of a new well down in the industrial park. So those are the features that will be included in this. Now that includes everything, all of the utilities, everything to get down into the down to the end of L Street.
My question would be, with the $700,000 reduction in revenue, the scale back on this particular project. In other words, it was scheduled for almost $2 million and we're down to 1.2. That's correct? According to
Correct.
staff report. Significantly outline what we've lost with that $700,000 scale back.
The main thing that we have lost is the overlay on L Street from Merced Street to Inyo, and the overlay of, or actually more than overlay, it was a complete reconstruction of Stanislaus, which connects L Street and M Street. Those are the two factors that we are recommending to hold off on at this time because of the dollar amounts that we have available.
So in other words, our main connectors to L and M, Stanislaus, virtually will remain untouched.
Well, M Street will still be done.
Okay.
M Street will be completely done, and it is in the worst shape of the two streets. We looked at both M and L, and we're trying to decide which one to do. It is definitely in worse shape than L Street is, and therefore we elected to do all of M Street, but we wanted to improve that intersection at L Street because that's pretty bad for trucks to get through that big dip that's in the road there. So that was what we took into consideration in what we, with the dollar amount that we had available. And this amount that is shown here with engineering and proposed inspection costs are included in your budget that is set to be approved tonight. Is that correct, Margaret? Yeah.
Where do we find this difference? We have total of $1,242,400, and then the budget impact $1,275,970.
That is in engineering and inspection fees that are not shown on this 1.242.
Okay. Any other questions for Cleve? We have some direction on this?
I move we authorize staff to advertise for bids for the industrial park project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Upside down stuff.
Item number 9E. Information report on Police Department Officer Retention Plan.
What this is, first of all, if I might just mention, our police chief, Mike Brady, had a death in the family down in Southern California, and therefore he would have been here to report on this, but since he isn't, I'm just going to go through it briefly. This is more of a report, informational item for you. I think what we will do is bring this back to you again in the future to look at, some of these things that you want us to consider and possibly put. None of this is included in this year's budget. So if there are things that you want us to consider further and bring back costs on, then we can do that and look at adopting those things. Again, the main purpose of this is for you to look at it. As you know, it was one of your goals to look at officer retention and how we might improve that. And this is the report that myself and the police chief have been able to put together to show what possibly can be done. One of the things that the chief mentioned to me, and I guess it depends on how you look at it, but we did have one bad year in 2001 when we actually lost 4 officers. But other than that, we're not doing as bad as we thought we were. I mean, we do have some young officers because we have had all those that have left in the early 2000s. But it appears that perhaps that is going down, and that we hope to be able to control a lot of that. If you look at some of the other things in here, you compare us salary-wise with some of the other cities. There's a salary chart in here. We are a little bit low, but if you look at the ones that we're lower than, there are cities that are much larger than us, or that are larger than us and can't afford to pay more. So I think pay-wise is part of it, but I'm not sure that there's anything that we can do within our budget limitations to bring that up to an amount that will remove that difference in pay. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the report. Other than that, I would take any recommendations of anything you might want us to bring back and look at cost items on any of these proposals or changes that are presented in the report.
Any comments?
Not at this time.
Bob?
No, it looks like if you have all the information here. Do you have any idea why we were able to retain more officers and there hasn't been that loss of officers like in the last, say, 6 months?
No, I can't say for sure.
Because it seems to have been a drastic drop in the number of officers that have left. They're staying.
Well, we have a lot of brand new ones that have
Yeah.
been here a year or less, so
Yeah,
We're still
that has
training
something
them.
to do with it.
yeah,
in
we're
the
still
case?
training.
Okay.
I might be able to just touch on that just a little bit. We have a relatively young staff right now, very young staff. 3 out of my 7 patrol officers are on probation, meaning they've been with us less than 12 months. I just had 2 that just cleared probation, so we do have a young staff. So far this year, we haven't lost anybody in 2002. The competitiveness for the job right now is very, very strong. There's a lot of agencies that are hiring, so we've tried not to lower our standards and hire quality personnel as well. The tendency is 2 to 3 years, then they start looking, and it's for the excitement. They want to go into larger agencies. But as to answer your question, why we haven't lost anybody right now, it's because we have a very young staff. And we have a lot of people on probation, so they don't look for jobs when they're on probation.
And probation is 1 year?
1 year.
There was a consideration in the staff report of extending probationary periods from 1 year to perhaps 18 months to 2 years. What's your thought on that?
We've talked about that. I've brought that up several times. However, that's a negotiable item that we have to negotiate with the union. Anytime you change work status, from 12 months to 18 months, it's negotiable. So, that's kind of a way to get another 6 months out of them, I guess, guaranteed. But a lot of agencies go to have 18-month probations, and I think probably more agencies are tending to start going that direction towards 18 months. That's an awful long time to be on probation, but you have a pretty good cop for at least 18 months.
We looked at that at our last round of negotiations too and played with it, but in the end we decided we weren't ready to go to that for whatever reason. Don't remember exactly what it was with the police chief and when we talked about it, but we decided not to go to it right now. So.
Would you be willing to make a bit of an assessment on your overall morale with the young troops?
Yeah, I think overall our young staff is they're happy. They're working hard. We have a lot of go-getters, and they're diligently doing their jobs. They're doing a real good job. Makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to deal with citizen complaints, etc. And
Makes our
everybody,
job easier too.
yeah, everybody doesn't like to get a ticket, but that happens from now and then. I just like to comment after reviewing a report. From my days when I started in 1980, City of Newman has come a long, long, long way. I started here making $1,100 a month, thought I was making bank. But, so we've come a long way. We offer a lot of incentives. There's a couple areas that I think that we really need to look at, and the chief has addressed those in here. He and I have talked a long time about some of the different incentives, and those are areas I think is going to help us retain officers. And just pay closer attention to the bottom part of the report where it says recommendations. That will kind of outline some of those areas, and those are areas that I truly feel will have an impact. So again, the chief can address those when he gets back. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Tom, do you have any questions for Tim? Any more?
No, thank you, Ed.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, why we'll try and bring this back maybe the second meeting of July, if that's available. This is one of our goals that we set our strategic planning, and this makes it on target, right?
Yes, it was supposed to be prior to June 30th was the goal on this one.
Item number 9F, discussion regarding additional planting for downtown. We have a list here that Susan Mattis made up. I've been looking at the planters and the tree wells. The planters themselves really don't look all that bad. You could see a few flowers in them, but the tree wells are the ones I think that we really have to go after.
No, the planters look like they almost got overplanted.
Yeah, well, it's strange. You know,
Yeah,
one planter will look really great, and then the same flowers, another planter, they look like they're dying. So I don't know what's causing all this, but and I think they have made a great difference downtown. So everybody comments on it. So I guess it's just, do we want to spend $1,100 to replant, or do we want to go with a little less on some of the planters? Or Ernie, your people are going to be out and doing this. What do you think?
Well,
I really have much to think about it there,
Well, from what I understand, though, a lot of this work is going to be done by volunteers.
Yeah, well, they're actually
I mean,
going to plant it.
Ernie's
but
not
I'm
planting
saying
it.
Ernie's people are going to be taking care of it and everything until we
For now,
find
yeah.
if we can afford someone to take care of this stuff. So,
I thought I saw. Did I see a hand?
would you like to get up and speak?
I just wanted to say something.
Sure.
I'm Sharon Ann Gray, I live at 245 Yellow Street. I think the planter boxes look really well right now. I think if we wait maybe till the end of July and then replace the asylum and the lilies and the geraniums and things that are in them, I think they will hold out with their color. That's just a personal thing.
Okay, that's good. Good, thank you.
That's good.
Well, I appreciate your comment, because it gives me a cost consideration. Why don't we, slice that $1,100 in half and consider $500, because part of your staff report, it says here that if a lesser amount is approved, we could possibly absorb it in this year's budget. However, if not, it would require a budget amendment. And
Right.
since we're looking at our fiscal budget tonight, and I've been looking at that very intensely, my suggestion would be to defer the cost down to 500. What does staff think about that in terms of being able to absorb that cost?
I think that we should go ahead and replace what's necessary. Like I say, some of the tree wells are pretty bad. A few of the planters, we could replace what flowers are dead in there. This time of year when it's this hot, we really don't get that many blooms anyway. There's not that many plants that are going to bloom, so.
Is this a discussion item only, or?
No.
No, we'd like direction from council on this, what you'd like us to do.
Well, I would go along with what the mayor is saying and make a motion, but I would move that we limit the amount to $500 for those upgrades in the planning.
Second.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, I was asking Margaret if we had, what would be the amount that we could budget this year?
Did you get an answer?
No.
Street project overall will need a budget adjustment at year end. We're at $2.8 million. $500 will not make a significant difference.
That's,
Not on this particular item.
okay. One of the concerns I have, if we cut back, are we gonna do justice to a downtown area? What I'm
Well,
saying is-
no, I think we should keep up, with what's necessary. But as far as replacing all of the plants, I don't think that.
Seems like these numbers here, seems like an awful lot of plants. To me, anyway. Since I planted them
I
the
don't know,
first time. Seems like there's an awful lot here.
Well, Susan's the one that made this up, and she's out of town, so
Conveniently, I know.
I'm sure she'd probably comment on it if she were here.
Well, I know she would.
So does that
well-
assessment of cutting it in half to $500, limiting it to it doesn't mean we have to spend $500. Does that sound reasonable? What do you think, John? Margaret says,
Well, let's go back to Margaret. You said 500 won't make that much difference anyhow. Would 1,100 make that much difference?
The budget needs to be adjusted
Regardless.
yeah.
Okay.
So don't make that be
So it could be 500 or 1,100, either one.
something worth
Okay.
spending your money on now. That's
Okay.
your question.
I think just looking at what is necessary in there and whatever the cost may be, I think replacing necessary, I think $500 probably would cover it, but I don't know.
Well, I think that's the thing, nobody knows, and I think before we just said, concern how much we should spend, we should know what we're talking about.
My question would be, who do you want to make that determination?
Well, I think what should be determined, Cleve, we know how many areas that need to be replanted.
Mhm.
I mean, there should be someone that could tell professionally
Yeah.
how many plants we need.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, and there's some, I don't know,
Well, this-
differences of opinion though on some as a measurement. Some of the planter pots, the Lissum has been hurt a little bit by the heat, I think. Others, it's doing great. And my opinion in looking at it and going over it and talking to Ernie a little bit is that most of the planter pots are probably okay. We'll watch them and see how they do, but I think they're probably okay. I agree with the mayor that perhaps what we need to do is look at filling in on the tree wells. A lot of those, some of the plants just didn't do quite as well. So we need to look at that and see, maybe a little bit more fertilizer in the tree wells to help some of those get going. And
They also
and
don't
let
get the
go.
sun that the.
Right. Yeah, so there's differences that way.
Well, to me, this appears that if you use 1,100, you're replacing everything,
Basically, yes.
basically. Yeah, well, I agree with the mayor and Tim then. Let's do what we need to do and
I agree. I think we need to evaluate more. Don't pull things out that are doing good. Take account and just replace what we need at this time.
Okay, well, I'll call for the
We need a
question.
city gardener.
Call for the question.
Pardon?
Call for the question.
Yes? What do we,
There's a motion on the.
yeah, I know.
we
What
have
do
a
we,
motion and a second already.
Okay.
What
All
was
in favor?
that motion? I'm sorry.
The motion was to limit this to replace what's necessary, limiting it to $500.
I agree with that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I moved it and Tom seconded.
Tom second.
Parker and
And we will probably hear about this next week.
Should be back Thursday.
Item number 9G, approved purchase of fence for preschool located at Densmore Park in accordance with agreement with Historical Society. Steve?
As you know, previously the council approved an amount of up to $5,000 to be spent on, actually, as it was stated, I went back and checked the report, was to install fencing and to move the playground equipment. I think that we can probably, Ernie's guys may complain a little bit about it, but we can probably move that playground equipment again, and without, minimal cost to do that, just the concrete to put around the poles. But it will cost. So what I'm recommending is that we look at the $5,000 for the fencing. I've done some research on that. The Historical Society also got me some information on fencing material and different things. The preschool, Sharon and Janet are here tonight, and I've talked to them a little bit. Their initial thought was to try and install chain link fence, at least on a portion around the building, and also they were looking at 6 foot. Staff's opinion is, I understand their concern with why they want the 6 foot. However, we feel in trying to keep the appearance of the building and give a nice look over there in the park, that perhaps looking at a vinyl fence rather than a chain link fence may be more appropriate. We initially wanted to look at 4 foot. I talked to Sharon and Janet, and we might be able to compromise on 5 foot, somewhere between 4 and 6. But they may have some additional comments on that. Additionally, I have some pictures of different vinyl fences that I can show you tonight, and we'd like some recommendations. You have them in your packets, and I have them on the overhead that I can show you. But perhaps we should hear from either Janet or Sharon first before we move on.
My name is Janet Perry, and I live at 1159 Q Street, and I'm the director and teacher of the preschool, and I've been here 32 years. We would like a 6-foot fence because a few weeks ago we had a soccer ball that hit a window, and luckily they came and they told who it was, so they're paying for it. So we have a 6-foot fence that would prevent it from having a soccer ball or football or baseball, someone hitting. We've never had any problems at preschool for over 32 years at all. And we have a chain link fence now in 6 feet.
Not around the building.
Well, the cherry field, no, we don't.
Yeah.
But we do on the roadside.
On one
And
side.
we've never had a bit of trouble. The kids have never ever tried 4 feet, even 5 feet. They would probably try to climb it, put things over it. I want something to prevent them, the safety of the children, the liability. So, and Mr. Morris, we didn't get a letter about tonight's meeting. It's a good thing Mary Moore told us about it. That was
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. I thought I was waiting for a phone call this morning. Never heard. Good thing Mary said something yesterday.
Okay.
Do you have any questions, Sharon? Do you want to add to it? We just want the safety of the children, and just.
I made a sketch. It's not correctly.
Thank you.
And you know, when you have boys, they like to climb. I could just see them climbing that 4-foot fence to try and get over or put something over.
They'll get over the 6 foot if they want to.
No, well, I don't think so. We never had trouble in 52 years.
My name is Anna Sharon Andrade, and I live at 1045 Yellow Street. I'm the director of the Preschool.
Microphone.
See, we tape this and nobody can hear
Hey,
it if you
just
don't
take-
talk into
Okay.
it.
Sharon, just take it off of there and hold it up. Just hold it right out of it. There you go.
I'm Sharon Andrade. I live at 1045 Yellow Street here in Newman. I'm the 4-year-old director at Newman Preschool, and I've been there going on 25 years. I have children that are 4, going on 5, and Janet has 3 going on 4. The sketch that I have made out for you is a kind of just a sketch to show you what we're talking about, the school area. And I too would like to see a 6-foot fence. I would prefer cyclone only because you can see through it. It's very visible as to who is coming, who is going. It's also for the safety and the security of the children at our school. And it's very durable, and it's going to serve as a barrier to keep the intruders out. That's my main concern. And with the 4-foot, I'm usually there at 6:30 in the morning because I set up. But once school starts, it may be a different situation. But there's been many, many mornings when I've been there, and there are dogs within that park area that are loose. And these dogs can climb over that 4-foot fence. I would like you to seriously think about not only the preschool children, but also all the other children in our community, those that are playing soccer, t-ball, football. A lot of parents go out and play, and they don't, as many of us know, they don't watch their children, and they will climb regardless. And I think if we had that extra 2 feet barrier, that would make them stop and think before they climbed over it.
Excuse me, Sharon, did you say you were in favor of the cyclone fence?
I would prefer cyclone because you can see through it.
Okay.
It's very durable.
Yeah.
I use it for painting purposes and things like that. When we're
Is that
outside,
pretty
I
much a
outside.
consensus of who? Of all the people, or what?
I think so. I think a lot of the parents that we have spoke to
Okay.
also are in favor of that. We do like the vinyl fencing. It looks very nice. But if we do decide to have a vinyl fence, I would like at least 6 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet and Sharon, thank you for your comments. I'd like to thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I've tried to spend a decent amount of time over there taking a look. I won't go as far to say as I've done any work. I'll have Mary up here saying, "No, you just come over and take a look." Well, you know, she wouldn't allow me to help paint when a lot of the preschool mothers came over. She said, "No, that's okay." She didn't want me to get paint on my clothing. My comment is, 6 o'clock tomorrow. My comment is, when this project first came to us and it was relocated there next to the library in the park, there was a big talk about aesthetics, of how it looked, and we all know how it looked on the onset. It looks fabulous. I mean, there's been a lot of heart and effort of the volunteer work that's gone in, and I commend the Historical Society and all the volunteers that have worked on it. Now that we've finished with the youth center and got it up and running, which is another good project that's come to completion, and the kids are going to be moving over, the consideration of the fence, whether it's cyclone or the vinyl, and the height is again a matter of aesthetics and what it'll look like with the residents that live right across the street. And I understand your concerns, particularly what you brought out about safety. The children, when they're playing, they're monitored, correct? So they're always monitored. The park, well, it is a park, and so you're going to have soccer, you're going to have baseball, and you're going to have the possibilities of damage by soccer balls and baseball. What we would like to try to account for is what you just mentioned in your presentation, was that the person who was responsible has been held responsible, and they're going to be paying for the damages. We would hope that would be a continuance, as if in the future that happens again. The cyclone fence, now, that is the steel fence that's closely, those are easier to climb. But I understand what you're saying. But those are easier to climb than the vinyl fence, because you can't put your feet in between the barring of the vinyl fence. And so, for aesthetic purposes, you would like it to be at least 6 feet. And we had a mediation, a middle point of 5 feet. Can we look at that and look at the presentation
You want to
that
look
you
at
have?
the pictures. All I have is some pictures, and that I can run through quickly and we can show
Well-
it. These two came out kind of fuzzy, I apologize, and these are just kind of some samples.
But along the same lines, you
And-
can see through those just as well as you can see through a cyclone.
Yeah, and I need to point out, because I see Sharon's got her hand raised, these probably will not work because of the way the pointed posts are. Okay?
Right, and that's
Right.
for safety.
But I threw some out just for you to
Wait,
look at.
Do you
Yes,
have the Princeton in that?
yeah, I'll go through these. These are a couple of others that I think Sharon and Janet may be acceptable. They do stick up a little bit, but they're flat on top, and I'm hoping, these were about as close that as I could come. I'm hoping maybe that this style would perhaps be acceptable.
Can we work some magic and get that ocean in there?
Yeah, that's what the mayor wanted. The one on the right, I've got to check on the Camden because I think there was some questions on it in the brochure I haven't been able to check on yet, that perhaps those slats are too far apart. They have to be a minimum or a maximum of 4 inches apart. So I think that one probably, that one may not work because of that. I didn't get the dimensions on that, but it may not work. The other one, the Baron, clearly would work. I believe those are about 2 inches apart.
Yeah, well, myself, between a 5 foot and a 6 foot, I don't think it's going to make any difference about keeping soccer balls and footballs out. They're still going to go over those fences, even if they're 8 feet tall.
No, that's true. They need a gate back there. The Barron, they list the picket spacing as 3 7/8.
3 and 7
It
inches,
looks
okay.
closer than that, but
Thank you.
that's why I was looking at the Princeton. Theirs is only 1 3/4.
There's the Parkman and the Princeton.
Princeton is only a 1 3/4.
So the
picket
slats are actually
spacing.
tighter.
Yeah, right. And with the Parkman, I don't know if they list, yeah, here it is. They don't say what the spacing is on that.
But for the aesthetic value, I'm not in favor of a cyclone fence myself.
Sharon,
And
those can be lowered so they can be.
And
right.
the schoolhouses back in the old days were red, and they had white picket fences. And this would be more in line with what it used to be.
Yeah,
And,
if it were not the school, we'd probably go with a standard picket fence. But here with the
But it
smooth
still-
rail
it
on
still
top,
looks a lot like
it looks
it.
like a picket
Right.
fence. Yeah. Personally, I like the Barron, but the Princeton, I believe, with the spacing, it'd be better. And the Parkman looks
Yeah.
like it's narrow also, but the pickets look a little sturdier in that Princeton. Something that really you don't know until you actually see it in person.
Well, between the Princeton and the Baron too, the Baron has a across the top, a solid bar.
yeah,
where
it's
you can grab
double bar
onto.
across the top. Yeah.
And the Princeton doesn't.
Right.
This is one I originally showed, and I still left it in here. I apologize, but this one wouldn't work because of the posts. But,
Right.
Hey, the Barrington that was, or the Baron that was mentioned, could you flash that one back up?
the Baron. Yeah. If you wait just 1 second, let me see if I can get back.
I think
to
it's the
that.
next one behind that one.
Let's see. You wanted the Baron?
I just wanted
Yeah.
to take a look at it up on the big screen. It has like a middle railing that.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
a little sturdier,
Actually, it's all vinyl. That's all
but
vinyl.
the problem is that you have a wider spacing between
The 3 7/8
right.
picket spacing.
Yeah, it is a lot wider. The other's
Anything
1
under 4
3/4.
inches, 4 inches or under is acceptable. Those are playground safety guidelines that are required.
So the kids can't squeeze through 'em.
Right. It either has to be under 4 inches or over 7, I think, 6 or 7, so that if they're going to try and go through, they can get all the way through.
Right.
What about a height requirement, Cleve?
They
You
come
know,
in 4 and
I
5.
believe in talking to them that they said as far as height requirement, it has to be at least 4 inches or 4 feet according to state guidelines. Yeah, at least 4 feet. Yeah.
I think a 5
I like
feet
the
in
Princeton.
vinyl. You can-
It's simple, it's more.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear from somebody from the Historical Society, get their opinion. If
Tom,
possible.
Barbara, Mary, anybody?
I mean, to put you on the spot, Mary, to see what you guys think.
Well, you are.
Since you're
I'm
the
sorry.
Yeah, but the president has to.
Mary Moore, 1442 Q Street, Newman. We always kind of like the vinyl, the Newman Historical Society. The preschool is what's going into the building, so We kind of feel that it should be between them and the city, but we thought this would be really outstanding with the schoolhouse. There's been a lot of work done, and that's how we felt, but we're not going to be in it either. We don't know what the kids do. I know kids will do things that you can't imagine, you know. So they put toys down on the ground and then climb over. So we don't know. That's up to the, you know, preschool. I think it would be better for you to wheel and deal with them and let them be happy about what's going to go in. If it was up to us, we like the vinyl ourselves.
You put that just perfectly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Sheldon Crow, 1233 S Street. Tomorrow, the ladies are going to propose to put a shed, which will hopefully look like an outhouse. We're going to put, they have to know where to locate it, and the architectural review is going to go through that. And I'm wondering how much fencing are we going to get? Are we going to get it all the way around the building or just parts of it? So that I'll have an idea how to proceed tomorrow.
I think Cleve figured all the way around, didn't you?
What I have proposed, the dollar figures that you see, will provide fence all the way around except in the front. So it'll come down the south side along the parking lot, turn over and connect with the front. So the area where they're looking at putting the storage shed would be fenced in on the south side of the building. That would be fenced in.
Okay, I would say too that I'm impressed with this. I'd never seen anything of it, and I was more leaning toward the steel fence as opposed to this. But this is great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a terrific one.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do any of you from the Historical Society have any preferences on any of these that we've shown here? We've talked about several of them here, but if you have a preference, why, we'd like to hear from you too.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think all of us so far have gone with the Baron, and I think Janet also. The height is the problem. That's the main objective here.
It comes in a 5'5".
It comes
5 foot.
Yes, it does.
The only difference is, no, 4 and 5 only. 6, I think a vinyl fence like that 6 feet high would just not look right.
No, it takes away from it.
In fact, a 4 foot would look better. 5 foot we could probably live with, but
Actually, Mayor, pardon me, if you look on the detail page for the Barron fence, it actually only comes in a 5 and 6 foot. It doesn't come in a 4 foot. I hadn't noticed that earlier, but
Is the price between 5 and 6 that great a big amount that you can't live with that?
Well, I think it's not the amount, Mary. It's the aesthetics of it. I think 6 foot
6 foot vinyl fence.
that's pretty high. And with the children that are going to be monitored anyway at the preschool, I'm not worried about the kids in the preschool. I think your concerns are outside. Some of the things that you mentioned were the security of the building, vandalism, things that we know that occur, but I think our police department tries to do a pretty good job mitigating that. And our police lieutenant is here tonight. He's shaking his head. He's nodding yes. Some extra patrols in that area, shine a spotlight at night to keep down the vandalism, which I know is a concern. 5 feet is kind of meeting us in the middle.
Janet? Sharon?
I was questioning how many...
Could you come up to the microphone?
please.
Please.
We can't get this on tape if you don't.
How many slats are in the 8, does it come in the 8-foot panel?
Well,
this one says it's a 90-inch section width, which is, what's 90 inches? Just under 8 feet, right? 7 foot 6 inches, right?
yeah. The spacing is 3 5/8, but doesn't tell you how big the
Yeah, the
pickets themselves.
pickets are 3 inches wide.
pickets 3 inches.
7/8
7/8
inches
by 3
thick
inches.
by 3 inches wide.
Okay.
And there's 3 7/8 inches between each picket.
Between each picket?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this will be down with
we
the
can,
ground.
we can do that. That shouldn't be any problem, making sure that that's, all you do is
Right.
put the pole in a little bit deeper and where it's hooked on, and that shouldn't be a problem, so.
Great. And I do feel that we have parents that would be more than willing to help the city staff with the fencing and with the playground equipment, as long as we know beforehand, so we can forewarn them also.
We
Yeah, that's the other
love
fact.
volunteers.
Yeah, well, our co-op is a volunteer, and this is their way of keeping the costs down for our schools, so everyone can
Yeah,
afford
this
to go.
doesn't include any installation costs. This is just purchasing it, but we feel pretty comfortable that we can get a volunteer group together to install the fence.
Now, there's one more question on this barren that they're looking at now. If we get it without that center rail, it brings us under our $5,000 figure. If we get it with the rail, it takes it a little over our $5,000 figure.
Mayor Reed, I would prefer the barren as shown, because I think it'll be a little bit stronger and durable throughout the coming years, not only the first year, but many years to come.
There's a cost consideration for that additional rail there?
Yes, there
Yes,
is.
if-
A difference of between $4,790 and $5,150. So it takes us $150 over our allotted $5,000 that we voted to approve for this.
But we are also keeping that fee, I think, would be under or about $5,000 with the volunteer help of our parents, instead of having to pay additional city staff to put that in.
No, this is cost of the fence without any.
That's cost of the
Yeah.
fence. Okay.
Mayor, you need to note too, in my report in the front, I checked later with the quotes, that did not include shipping, so you need to add approximately 11.5% to those. So even at the 4790, we are close. You'll be just over 5,000 with the 4790 that you're looking at.
Actually, the only other one,
With any of the 5-foot ones, you're going to go a little bit over the 5,000
yeah,
with the 11.5%.
your Barron and Allentown and Vermilion, Victoria, and Altoona are all basically the same.
So we're within a few $100s when we go to the 5-foot vinyl railing.
May I
Yeah.
interrupt a minute?
Sure.
We're going to need gates on there also, Cleve. Is that including
There-
gates?
This includes a gate from the parking lot going up the ramp, and it includes a double gate for equipment access on the north end.
Okay, we need a divider between right at the handicap ramp.
You know, you're right. I think, let me see what I did on gates. Did I add that last one in? No, I didn't. You're going to need one more gate. I did include fencing going up both sides of the handicap ramp, but I forgot to add the gate in to get into that little area there. So you may have a couple of $100 for another gate there.
So two gates and then a double wide.
Yeah. Yes.
So there would not be a double gate on the north side?
Yes, there will be.
There will be.
As
Okay.
proposed, as you can see, if you look on the first page of the quote, it outlines there will be one standard 48-inch wide walk gate. That's the one that we'll need to add two instead of just one of those. And then below that it says one standard 120-inch double drive gate, which is wide enough to get equipment in there if necessary.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Shannon.
Oh. I didn't, Paul Wallace, 2025 N Street. I didn't get the benefit of seeing your staff report on this, but we did review these in the Planning Commission, some of the fence rules, and I don't know how close to compliance this is with the folks that were here last week. I think it's 2 feet higher than they can put in their front yard. If you're, like I said, I haven't seen the map. I don't know if it's right on the street, but I remember we reviewed this about
That
6
applies
months
to
ago.
residential though.
There is no residential. And to encourage you not, that cyclone fence wouldn't be, and this is sort of as my Chamber of Commerce hat, cyclone fence would not be approved if this was going to be used for outdoor storage in a commercial zone. So just with continuity with what would go on in the rest of the city, this wouldn't be an acceptable thing to pull a permit for if you were going to do an outdoor storage unit, outdoor storage yard in the commercial zone of the city.
If it were cyclone, you're saying?
Cyclone.
Yeah,
It would
I don't
have
think
to be
that's,
screening.
I don't think,
yeah, that's no longer the consideration.
no.
We're just trying
Thank
to
you,
decide
Paul.
which vinyl, but thanks, Paul.
Any other questions before we try and make a decision here?
no, I'm in favor of the 5-foot barren.
5-foot barren as shown.
Right.
All right, that's going to take us probably to around $5,700, $5,700. Figure that, Cleve?
With the 11.5%, we're probably talking about $5,300. But then you're going to have to add in that one more gate. I'm not sure exactly.
$5,500.
I'm guessing $200 to $300 for the additional gate.
55.
I guess
55.
maybe around 5,500 or 5,600.
Do you want us to include in the motion the additional $500 for the?
Well, if you want to go with that, I can't guarantee it's going to be. What I would say is, if that's the one you want, include, rather than the $5,000, you want to pay for the barren with the mid rail,
Right.
5-foot barren with the mid rail, and then we'll.
What do you think about the
three gates.
Is that everyone's consensus?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
May I
Yes,
make
Mary,
a,
go
may
ahead.
I make a comment, please?
Sure.
We had talked about, I wasn't sure at the time, I just checked with Barbara. We were talking about enclosing with a piece of fence across where the handicap ramp is, in front of the handicap ramp, at the edge of where the porch is. I believe you're all aware of the porch there that we have added in the back,
Right.
so that the children could not go jump on the handicap ramp and play on it. Just so to make it inaccessible, right there
Yeah,
where
right-
they're going to
right
have their
on-
shed.
On the porch itself to keep.
Right at the edge of the porch.
Yeah.
And just,
Well,
just a little fence there.
I don't know that, I think that would probably be an extra. I don't think that would be included in this. This is a perimeter fence here. And I don't, for one thing, I don't think we'd want a fence like that there. You just want a lower.
Just a small one, yeah.
Small. I think that could probably made a wooden picket and rail fence. Would you? Tom, you can make that, can't you? I got great confidence in you.
Tom's saying I've done enough
We're
work.
volunteered out.
I can see it.
Yeah, Mary, do you want it at the right at the top of the ramp before you go onto the porch?
Right.
Because I believe building code will not allow you to do that. You have to have, anywhere there's a gate or a door, you have to have a flat platform. For someone who's in a wheelchair, they stop on the platform, open the gate, and then go in. So it would.
No, on the side from the handicap ramp over to the fence, so that the kids cannot go back in there. So keep the kids in the playground itself.
Right, but if it's right at the top of the ramp, you have to have a flat spot.
Not on the ramp, just on the ground.
You're talking about a barrier for the kids.
Yes, just a little.
Sure, you can come up
Down
with
the
something.
side of
Yeah.
the ramp, is that where you? Right? Right, at the top of the ramp.
Not at the top of the ramp, just before the ramp goes up.
Cleve, it's just a barrier between the playground and to get back to the parking lot, so that they can't get in the back part. And that's where they have planned on putting their shed, I believe. They have priced
I think.
a tough
I think
shed.
we've got- will you come and show me, Mary, where
Yeah.
you're talking about on here? Because I think, if I'm understanding right, I think we're okay. Where did you want the gate? Here's the parking lot, and here's the ramp going up.
And then we have out to the edge of here.
Right. Oh, put a gate, so a fence and a gate across that area.
Yeah.
No, they were talking about the shed right here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess the concern is and I understand what you're trying to do, is that kind of makes that a dead area in there, but yeah, what they're talking about, do you understand what they're saying? They're talking from the fence over to the ramp, so essentially west side of the building would be fenced off so that the kids couldn't go in there.
Get on the ramp.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the grass, because the fence is actually back, gonna be, I think it's approximately 18 feet back from the building on that west side. Because the fence will actually run, right to the corner of the parking lot. So it's back, there's about 18, 20 feet, I believe, isn't it, 20 feet, from the building back to where the fence is. So there's gonna be an area there next to the ramp, about 20 feet of open space in there, and that's what they're saying. They would like to fence that off to so that the kids can't go back in that area. But it would have to be fenced, and I'm assuming have a gate there as a...
I think we're starting to add up the cost considerations.
If
If we really wanted to do that, I'm gonna leave that up to the creativity of the Historical Society and the preschoolers. I think you'll probably be able to find something to keep the kids from going in that area. But as it reads now, with the fence that we've decided upon at 5 feet, I'm gonna, if the mayor's so inclined, make a motion that we move to approve or authorize the city manager to execute this agreement with the Historical Society with the amount to exceed or include the additional cost for the fence.
The barren fence.
Yeah, the barren fence.
Barren,
At 5
5
foot.
foot barren with the rail.
Yeah, because it's going to exceed this cost consideration we have here by just a bit.
Second. I'm not sure that's really clear, Tim, because the fence, that could include that other fence we're just talking about now. We're talking about the perimeter fence.
Right, the perimeter fence only, and when I set aside an amount, I think what figure were we looking at? Roughly maybe additional $500?
The 11.5% is going to be about $550, and then you do want to add in that additional gate that I said I left out. So you're going to be adding, you're going to be close to $6,000 when I look at this. Now that I look at it again, I was looking at the wrong number originally. Oh, here it's $5,150 plus the 11%. 11% of that's going to be about $550.
I figured it about 5,800, something like that, I think, with the gate.
Yeah, it depends on how much that gate is. I really can't say exactly, but I'm guessing $200 to $300 for the gate. So with adding the 550 brings it up to 5,600, 5,700, and then $200 to $300 for the gate's going to put you close to $6,000.
So it's essentially extending the loan amount from 85 to 95?
No.
Excuse me, I mean just on the fence, It's exceeding the amount from 5,000 to 6,000?
Correct. That's what I'm estimating. I don't have the solid quote on that, but I'm estimating that about, hopefully under $6,000 we get it for.
That's not a loan, is it?
No,
I'm sorry.
No,
that was the wrong wording.
No, it's not.
This is the money we're spending, and that's why we're grappling with it, because, we're under a lot of cost considerations. We have our budget adoption tonight, too, so. Well, I'm at the will of my colleagues,
But not to exceed 6,000.
I will amend my motion for it not to exceed 6,000.
I amend my second.
And that includes just the perimeter fence as I
Only the perimeter
described, plus
fence.
the additional
The
gate
barren
that
that was
we
decided
talked about.
upon at 5 feet,
Okay.
as shown.
Any other discussion?
Unless you can get the company to throw in a little more for that, Cleve.
Okay, I'll do what I can.
Maybe you can get that other little extra
Tell 'em
part.
sharpen their pencil.
Or, Ernie, could we take a trailer down and pick that up, maybe? We could, where's it, in Florida?
Road trip.
There you go.
Hey,
I'm a volunteer driver.
all right, in that case, can we, everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay. Item number 9H. Authorize city manager to notify state legislatures of possible consequences of shifting tax increment dollars from the Newman redevelopment agency. Lee?
You have the report. Margaret actually wrote this. If you have any comments or questions, you can ask her. I think it's pretty clear, as you know. One of the proposals, cost proposals that the governor and the legislature are looking at would take some ERAF money actually from tax increment, or which funds are redevelopment agency. As Margaret has pointed out, funds are bond payments. And so it's not a major amount, not to throw up a huge red flag, but it is a concern. It'll be monies that our redevelopment agency will not be getting. Do you have anything to add on that, Margaret?
We have payments on our 97 redevelopment bond tax increment obligated. The principal alone is over $190,000 a year. We're also approaching a time where we're hitting our 10-year mark of the existence of the redevelopment agency, which is a milestone for the pass-through agreements, which we're obligated to give redevelopment increments to other agencies who hadn't been receiving any of the revenues from that property tax mechanism. That's going to reduce our property tax increments a great deal, even though the value of the property is going up. So this is very critical. This is in response to the state did the same thing several years ago when they couldn't balance their budget, that they had to provide funding for the schools, and since they couldn't do it, they took the money from the counties and the cities. We've lost over $900,000 in regular property tax in the past 10 years that they have shifted to schools. This is the same type of thing that they're doing, using our tax dollars from redevelopment to balance their budget.
Now, our amount that we would lose would be approximately $20,000, is that correct?
This year,
This
it's
year.
just anticipated because they haven't drawn anything official yet.
And I guess this has already passed the Assembly Budget Subcommittee, and the Department of Finance has not yet crafted the formula, so we really don't know how much it's going to cost us. It's just one of the things, I believe. There's also another one, this sales tax redistribution just popped up again, AB 680.
Yeah, I saw that.
Where right now it just pertains to the Sacramento region where they want to redistribute the sales tax. It would cost the cities, individual cities, a lot of money there. So I think that what we're asking here is to authorize city manager to notify the state legislatures of possible consequences. So this is all coming up. Well, the 6A is coming up tomorrow, I believe. So we'd have to email or fax something to them tomorrow morning, if possible. So when you do that, would you add the sales tax redistribution in there too? Yeah, 680 in there too. See if we can. We kind of stopped that one time through the League of Cities.
Yeah, they're opposed to.
But now it's come back with some amendments that are not very pleasing either. So, can we have a motion? If there's no other discussion, can we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, now we get down to the fun part.
And Mr. Mayor, since we are moving our agenda item down to I and our budgetary considerations, I'm going to ask that we have a roll call vote when we get down to our voting on the budget.
Okay. We're on item number 9I. Adopt resolution number 2002, next number, a resolution adopting the preliminary budget for fiscal year 2002-2003. I didn't suppose you want to say anything, Margaret, about it? Margaret, go ahead and take this, please.
You've already said it, haven't you, Margaret?
All the time.
Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the Council. The item before you tonight is our annual preliminary budget. Its purpose is to provide the City Council with an accurate picture
and also projections of the available fiscal resources that we have. It gives you the opportunity to set priorities and spending limits. This approved document will allow the city to spend money and keep operating, especially until the time when the final budget will be adopted, September or October. It is a source of information for the council, for staff, and the public. It is based on assumptions and projections, which establishes our goals and missions for the future. For the city council, it becomes a philosophical bridge for what you want to do and what you can do based on the money that you have available. It brings everything together. All year long, you evaluate individual projects, programs, and you base them on their own merits, and they may be very good. But it's not until the budget is compiled that you have to decide if the overall effect is something that the city can afford. Individually, these programs may be very worthy, but you need to look at them in the whole picture. We put the budget together first by looking at the bare bones necessary amount to operate the city. The law requires us to pass a preliminary budget which is balanced by June 30th. We use a fund accounting to actually budget our balance our budget based on the sources of the revenue. Our expenditures are guided by where the money comes from. We have funds. We have a general fund which allows council discretion on how you want to spend the money. We have special revenue which restricts your discretion, and the expenditures have to be made for only certain items. We have enterprise funds, which are like businesses, primarily sewer and water, which are funded by the fees that are charged for those services. General fund is what you have discretion on. The primary sources of revenue is sales tax, property tax, motor vehicle, and lieu of fees. The expenses are the police department, administration, recreation, fire department. In 1960, those revenues made up 77% of all our revenue. Now it's less than 9%. So you have some decisions to make, and the result is a lot of services are impacted. You may have to cut or eliminate services, or you may need to charge the users, those who benefit directly from the services. You may need to get funding elsewhere, and we have relied a great deal on other agencies. But its effect is that it reduces our control over our programs. It increases our dependency on other agencies, and we can see what has happened to us now. Last 2 years, the city's gotten over $660,000 from the state and federal government for police services. Don't think that we're going to be getting that this year when there's a $23 billion deficit. We could also use creative means to get more revenue. A prime example is our redevelopment agency, an entirely different mechanism in which brings in revenue in which we could do what we need to do. Then we look at the expenses, at the revenues and expenses. We analyze labor. It's easy this year because we're in the second of a 5-year contract. We list all the reasonable programs and requests that have been submitted by the various departments. We have to remember to include all costs, not just what a contractor or what a bid price is, but all the other additional costs that could be affiliated with it. Then we total that by the fund. Is it a general fund? Is it special revenue? Or is it enterprise? Next is we take a look at the revenue. We make conservative, reasonable projections. We have to be sure to match our revenues with our expenditures. In other words, if there's a fee, if we collect X number of dollars for building permits, there has to be a mathematical equivalent for the expenses. Baseball fees, anything that we charge for, it has to go both ways and balance the revenue to the expenses. Then we total that by fund, and after that is done, you are attempting to balance the budget. You are in balance, or you are in the black, if your opening cash plus your revenues minus your expenses is a positive number. If it's not, you have to cut. Otherwise, we will not have a balanced budget. You stay out of fiscal problems if you try to do every current year balancing your revenue to your expenses, especially in the general fund. This doesn't apply to other funds, such as our redevelopment agency. We received about $4 million from a bond a couple of years ago, cash. We're not getting any more money from that bond except what the interest brings in, but we have to spend $4 million on projects during the course of the next couple of years. So, of course, our expenditures will well exceed our revenues in that fund, but that's okay. 2 years ago, when the state had a healthy surplus, you asked, we're in pretty good shape, aren't we? And my response was, yes, we are today. Now you may ask, considering the state's $23.5 billion deficit, are we okay? And my answer would be, yes, we are today.
For right now, our reserves are sound. Staff has eliminated over $150,000 in requests to keep our expenses down. And while we don't know what the state is doing, our revenue flow has been pretty consistent and constantly growing, even though at a small rate. And we can weather this short-term crisis. It's the long-term that we have to worry about. If you want to go over the report and talk actual numbers, or if you just want to ask questions, ever how council wishes to proceed, I'd be happy to go over everything, page by page, item by item.
I wanna let my colleagues in on just a little preview. I had the opportunity to sit down with Margaret on the 3rd, and I spent roughly three and a half hours with you, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was able to peruse the budget line by line, item by item, to take a real close look so I wouldn't have those questions tonight and feel uncomfortable about our budget. If you recall, about a year ago, before our last preliminary budget, I kind of spoke at length about the pending crisis with the state, and we didn't know that it was going to be a $20+ billion deficit at that time. And call it hindsight or forethought, I could just kind of see the writing on the wall that this was going to be inevitable. So, Margaret, I want to commend you. I do have a specific question, and let's go to the variance between projected revenues versus expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Because under the general fund, under the variance, we still have a deficit.
Yes.
There's a negative amount there.
Mm-hmm.
That's not in the black.
That's correct.
That's in the red.
Right.
You've gotten it and whittled it down from $265,000, which was definitely unacceptable, down to $60,000.
Mm-hmm.
However, I see a difference in the revenue versus the expenses, and going down in the funds, there's been some changes. Can you account for the changes, and I'll be specific with you. Under item number 70, the contingency fund, that shows a negative $268,558. Can you just kind of explain that big number there?
The contingency fund does not receive on an annual basis income. That is any time that we get an extra surplus and council decides to set it aside. The last money that was transferred into that fund was the Tataric settlement of $300,000. We are spending that money on the L.M. Stanislaus extension. So we're not bringing any money in other than interest, and we are spending that money that was collected.
So that money's pretty much spent.
Yes. Well, that's just, you'd have to look at the fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
There is still money left over from prior years when we had an extraordinary amount of sales tax coming in one year. We shifted its surplus into that fund to only be used, so council looks at that and needs to make a special judgment call if that fund should be touched or not.
Okay. And I'm going to also refer to the staff report where it makes there's a statement here, and it's on the final page. I think it's about the mitigating costs and the structure fee that we just went over.
Yeah.
For basically an assessment on builders.
Mm-hmm.
The adjustment will realize over $1 million increase in revenue, which is necessary to keep the city's infrastructure up with anticipated growth.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make a comment on that because I know for certain that the current builders that are here, we struck a deal with them. They are not going to have any higher...
It's because that they accepted that the full cost of that adjustment,
Yes.
that we're going to realize the $1 million.
From the current agreement.
From the current agreement. That adjustment went back to 92, 93. There was a question if that could or should be assessed. Going back that far, creating a 21 to a 24% increase.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do that, or if we can only focus on the current year, which was only like a 2% increase.
Right.
The builders agreed to pay the 21% adjusted rate, provided the brand new rates that are going to come into effect in August will not be charged for 10 years.
Right, okay.
So that $1 million is because they agreed to pay the new adjusted rate, not the new rate.
So just that everyone understands, that's a realized amount that we will be getting on the current housing industry that's going in our town right now.
The ones who have vested maps that will bring us in the 1,200 units that are already obligated and vested. We will get that $1 million, which we may not have had the agreement not been reached between the city and the developers.
Very good, thank you. And I guess to add some finality to what I've gone over in the budget, I'm going to move over to our contract services agreement for the amount of money that you have targeted currently. And I'll give my colleagues the opportunity to catch that. The pages aren't numbered, so if you take the beginning of the report and go in, I guess about 10 to 12 pages, you'll find at the bottom it'll have asterisks, additional contract services will be listed in bold letters.
It follows the salary summary. And it starts out looking like this. It says contract services detailed by
Additional
department.
contract services.
Yeah, and the third
There's
page
asterisks right
of that
there's
report, yeah.
asterisks right above.
It follows salaries, salary costs, which follows a summary page.
That's where I was.
My question is this, on the preliminary that I reviewed with you,
Uh-huh.
for building inspections, there was amount of 150,000. I see it's swollen to 340,000. Is that taken into consideration of all the new housing?
It's probably more accurate if it's assuming 250 houses will draw permits during the course of next year. It's assuming that those houses will be, the fee charge will be based on a smaller house of 1,900 square feet, because that's how building permits are charged. And I even lowered that. I am not 100% comfortable with that, but it is.
Neither am I.
Well, never, all the years we think it's going to happen, and sometimes it's delayed. It will happen, but it may not be this year.
Okay.
It isn't a great problem, because if we don't spend we only spend it if the money comes in.
Right.
So it's not as bad as, it's a cost that has a corresponding revenue.
Okay.
It would be nice, but 75% of the fees we get to, 25% of the fees we get to keep.
Right. Okay. And the other assessment that I see and make here is under code enforcement. I see we've been able to reduce that from 40,000 to
after the
5,000.
manager had gone through, because at the time that I met with you, we didn't go through the final go-around on the administrative level. There was a proposed contract to do court enforcement for 40,000, and at this point in time, we didn't think it was quite necessary already, so we anticipated that 5,000 would be all that is necessary. It could come back to council as an individual item if you
I'd like to see it as an individual item, only because the consideration for who's going to do the code enforcement, I would like to see that as an agendized item for this council, so we make a decision on it.
as a separate part that isn't directly tied into the timing of the preliminary budget, though, right?
No.
Thank you.
You can leave it there.
There's an additional staff position in here that possibly could be used for code enforcement.
I saw that, and I had a question about that, and that was under planning. How are we going to mitigate the cost for that? Are we looking at that as a full-time position, a part-time position? I'm not.
It showed 60 some odd % planning, and there was 30 some odd % left over.
That was being covered by 40% covered by redevelopment fund, 60% by general fund. The position if a new full-time person is what's anticipated.
19 state colleges, all 9 UC colleges, and all the prison systems in the state, that would only amount to $12 billion. So it gives you
next year. So the question is, do we push that back another year and go to what would put it up to around 95,000 miles probably for the year after that. Those are the concerns. As I mentioned, this actual fund that this would be taken out of is what is called our vehicle repair and replacement fund. It is a separate fund from the general fund that you're looking at tonight, so it does not affect that bottom line that is in the general fund. However, as Margaret mentioned, police departments over the last couple of years have received a lot of funds for technology and other things. Those funds, most of them have been cut out this year, and we expect that almost all of them will be cut out. That will put more of a drain on on this fund probably if there are other items that come to our attention that need repair and replacement in the future. In the past, we've been able to do some of that work with these technology funds that we've gotten from the state and federal government. Bottom line is, I needed to bring this back to you because both my police chief and my lieutenant have this concern that if we skip 1 year, are we putting in jeopardy the safety of the officers and being able to respond in adequate vehicles. I'm not convinced yet. I told Ed this today. I said we may disagree when we come to the council tonight, but Ed and I and the chief get along, and we can do that if we need to. I am not completely convinced yet that we need to go ahead and purchase that new vehicle at this time. The police department is convinced. They think we should move forward with it. But it's something that I think that I need to make the council aware of and allow you to make that decision. One thing is for sure, I think that even if it were approved now, we would not do anything until the final budget comes, which will be September anyway. So, whether or not you make a decision now on it or withhold your decision until the final budget may be another way of treating this at this time. But again, I just want to bring this to your attention and give you the opportunity, even in the preliminary budget, if you want to consider putting that vehicle back in. And Ed, if there's anything you want to add, you're welcome to at this time.
After hearing all the bleak pictures, and I understand that, the report that I worked on for Cleve, what I just basically did, I just called agencies, in Merced County, Stanislaus County, and San Joaquin County, kind of getting an idea of what agencies did as far as car replacement. Some are pretty much cut and dried. Once it hits 80,000 miles, it's gone. Comes off the street. Some, basically, we're kind of on the same plan, kind of like the 5-year plan. Currently, our oldest car in the fleet right now is a 97 Ford. That car is not street worthy for emergency services. So we've assigned that to our dare officer / school resource officer / whatever thing else he does. The car does not basically go out of town. It's not used, well, it does, it can go out of town, but it's not used in a situation where it could be possibly put in an emergency situation such as a code 3 run. We just don't feel it's worthy of that condition. A couple of comments that I talked to Oakdale Chief Steve Kroll, and they pretty much put their cars on a 5-year plan. At 70,000 miles, they pull their cars off service. His point he made to me, what he cited basically is he considers the patrol car, and I never really gave it that much thought until he said it, and it made sense to me. The patrol car is basically the police officer's office. He's in that car 10 to 12 hours a day. That's his workspace. That's what he uses to conduct his job. With that, Chief Kroll's made sure that it's a priority that they keep the cars in tip-top shape. He cites liability, a problem with a car going down while the officer's in a code 3 situation. He weighs the risk factor and liability factor. Ripon PD's pretty much there. They've initiated a take-home car situation. An officer lives in town. He's issued a car. He uses that on a daily basis. They encourage that officer to use that car, go to the store, get a gallon of milk, loaf of bread. But while that car is on the street, it's put in service, and they let dispatch know that they're in the car. So at any given time, if all 35 of their officers happen to go get a gallon of milk at the same time, they got 35 cops on the street. That doesn't happen too often, I'm sure. But They kind of take theirs on a case-by-case basis, anywhere between 80,000 to 100,000 miles on those cars, they automatically come offline. He cites maintenance reasons, maintenance costs go up. And they typically replace 1 to 2 cars per year. Merced PD is on a 5-year plan. Car reaches 5 years of service, it comes offline. It's no longer used as police services. Sirius PD, they take their cars offline at 80,000 miles regardless. Car hits 80,000, it's not worthy of police services in their mind. Let's see. Patterson, prior to contract with the county, they went on a 5-year plan. Since they've gone contract with the county, they've signed off all their cars, transferred them to fleet services, and they basically do the same thing. Once a car hits 100,000 miles, they take it offline. They don't use it on the street anymore. And Gustine, I touched on that, about 100,000 miles. Chief Hutchins basically said the same thing. They don't feel the car is street worthy. Once it hits a certain miles, it's 5-year plan, 100,000 miles, they don't feel it's worthy of emergency services. My position, I've been in both situations. Again, in 92, we didn't purchase a police car. We waited, and then we purchased, actually what we did, we purchased 2 91s, did not purchase a car in 92. In 98, a car was not purchased, and we purchased a 99. Our position is we want to stay consistent with what we've done in the past, purchasing a new car every year. We rotate the oldest car off the fleet, and we convert it into a pool car, court car, school car. The chief wants to create a volunteer car. I currently drive a 94 Ford Crown Vic, which used to be an old police car. It's got 109,000 miles on it. You know, it's worthy for my services, what I use it for, back and forth from Modesto, doing the court runs, etc. Our detective drives a 95 Ford Crown Vic, next police car, patrol car, that has 118,000 miles on it. We're single drivers, so the car will last a little bit longer. We've initiated a two officer per car scenario that we use, and it seems to work out well for us. I assign 2 officers to a car. Those are the only 2 guys who drive it. It's their responsibility to take care of it. We service them every 3,000 miles. I think our maintenance costs have kind of fluctuated. That 97 Ford cost us a lot of money towards the end of our budget. It was a cost not anticipated. It was a cost that was incurred that was not because of misuse or abuse. It just happened. As soon as we got the engine in, Patrick tells us the transmission's bad. We're towards the end of the budget year. We can't afford to spend $3,000 or $4,000 for a new tranny. My recommendation is we pull that car offline, and when the budget permits, we repair or fix the transmission, replace it, and we make that a pool car. I don't feel it's street worthy, and again, I think if we break our trend of replacing cars on a regular basis, puts us behind the 8 ball. We're continuing to grow. I think we're always going to have to look at adding cars soon. You know, I don't know how soon we want to do that. We've gone, since I've been here, to having 3 patrol cars to 5 patrol cars. So, you know, we're going to continue to grow, so we're going to continue to provide patrol cars for our officers to use. That's why I buy bicycles for everybody. So, at any rate, Cleve and I have had discussion with it today, and I've talked to the chief by phone today, and understanding the budget crunch, we understand that, and everybody's going through it. Like Cleve said, you know, we get along well, and we can live with whatever decision that's made, but we truly feel we need to replace that car, and it would not be purchased till September. Means we're not going to get it probably till November or December.
To fully equip a police sedan, $20,000-$25,000.
That's purchase price.
That's just the purchase price, and then a fully equipped.
We can equip it. And I put the number in there at 34,000.
Yeah, it's about another 10,000.
Yeah, by the time we put all of our equipment in.
Ed, I have a question for you. You say you have 5 patrol cars. Those are the ones that are on the street using the rotational?
Those are the marked patrol cars.
Those, I mean, yeah, we're only speaking marked patrol cars.
That's correct.
Fully equipped.
That's correct.
And you're down 1 with this 97, or no? That's an extra.
Well, it's not down out of service. It's being used on a very limited basis.
Is that one of your 5, though?
Yes, it is.
That's the one with the transmission problem.
That's correct.
At any given time, what's the most that we have in patrol? 3 officers
In one given time?
at any one given time?
3
How many
cars.
cars will we have on the street?
3.
3. And the reason why I ask, well, yeah, I share a little bit of this expertise being a detective, and my car has about 98,000 miles on it, but like you said, it's a one-car driver. Margaret, when we went over the budget extensively, you spoke about depreciation and money that's pooled in that amount, and you were saying how good a job the police department was doing. Could you just explain that a little further and how that money would be divvied up in
Several
consideration of
years
the
ago,
cost?
we established the Capital Repair Replacement Fund. The money comes from every single department, every single fund. We take all the equipment, vehicles that they have, and we do a simple straight line depreciation. The value of the item divided by the number of years it's estimated to last, and we put that dollar amount for 1 year into the special fund. Currently, the police department has $55,000 in that fund. That $55,000 includes a $48,000 deposit for this year. That $48,000 is based on the $100,000 we're betting that the state will give us. If we don't get that $48,000 in that fund for the police department, they will only have whatever 55 minus 48 is. That's 7,000.
Can you buy a
So
car for
that's-
7,000?
Not
That's
anymore.
what creates a great deal of concern. And every year they've been able to fund the purchase of the vehicles because of the special fund for the depreciation. But someday when our general fund gets hit real bad, we won't be able to afford as the general fund to put money, because it's from the general fund. We won't be able to put money into that special repair replacement fund. And it's every year we come to you, we did this a month or 2 ago, saying I want to transfer $163,000 for all our departments. And since the budget is okay, we were able to do that. Someday, we have threatened before that we weren't able to do the full transfer for the full depreciated amount for that fund if the things get bad. In this case, especially when the funding for the police department's share is based on that state COPS grant, it's the one grant that we did leave in this year that we think we should be getting.
So there you have it. That's basically what you're contending with as far as budgeting your car. If we can get that money out of the depreciation funds, which is stipulated by getting the grant still from the state, then yeah, sure, you got $55,000 in order to purchase a car. If not, then we're going to be a little tighter on money. And I understand. I mean, I've worked patrol for 9 years in a marked police vehicle, have a number of Code 3 runs. And unfortunately, just recently, a San Francisco officer was killed in the line of duty in a Code 3 run. So I understand the safety concerns, and we will continue to take a look at it. If we put it in, Cleve, on the preliminary budget, basically what you're telling me is it's been taken out of this preliminary budget?
It's not in the budget currently.
Well, just as we alluded to and Mr. Mayor said earlier, this is just the preliminary budget.
Right.
When we look at actual cuts, that's going to come up in September anyway, and everything's going to come before us, before an expenditure. What's the harm in adding that back in?
You could go either way. You could say let's add it in now, or you could say let's consider it in. Either way, we're not going to purchase it because that's the direction we receive from you. Don't make any of the major expenditures until such time as we adopt the final budget. And so things like the additional position we talked about, the purchase of a police car, we have costs in there for the purchase of new tables and chairs for the memorial building. Things like that, we will hold off until the final budget. We will just do normal operations, keep normal operations going. So it's kind of either way. You can throw it in, and either way you're going to consider it at the final budget. So
it's really not
it's
that it's just it's there on the preliminary, but doesn't really mean anything. So there's also another part of that too is that we have in our strategic goals we have regarding the police department in that too. So that will also be coming up by October. The state will hopefully have their budget by September. So I think if we hold off until the final budget on this, I think that we can make a better decision. Is that agreeable, everyone?
Yeah, the only thing
Ideally, hold off.
I don't want to do is I don't want to jeopardize our officers or our community by not having cars out there. They're not cars that are dependable, that they can drive to where they have to drive. And I don't know if we save any money by delaying buying a vehicle, because at some time we're going to have to pay. Maybe some years we're going to have to buy two. So I don't know if there truly is a cost savings when you do that, Cleveland.
No, I agree. If there's any way that we can afford this. we ought to
Well,
do it.
I know, but
My consideration in that, Bob, was perhaps that what we look at is, do we delay this year, do we skip a year, but then go back to the one a year? Would that be possible? And I agree with you, then you're talking possibly running that second vehicle up to all your vehicles possibly, you're gonna be pushing about 95,000 to 100,000 miles, depending on how they go. Now, is that wrong? It just kind of depends. You've got 2 or 3 agencies in here that said that's where they take their patrol vehicles to, is 100,000. But all I'm saying is, that it's something to consider. I'm not saying right or wrong, and like I say, I think we've talked about it amongst the police department, and it's just all the facts to consider and look at in there. And I agree 100%. We need to provide the best equipment that we can for our police officers.
that's right. And if we have to cut the budget somewhere else, so be it.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is we have to look at the most important priorities in our community.
Sure.
That's all I have.
All right, any other discussion on the budget, preliminary budget? Okay, can we have a motion on the resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the city of Newman fiscal year 2002, 2003?
So move with the addition of any expenditures that will amount to over $10,000 be brought to this council prior to actual expenditure on the preliminary, when we were mentioning that.
Okay.
So I'm setting the amount.
Okay. Is that the limit of $10,000?
Well,
Can you limit that to capital expenditures?
Capital expenditures only?
Does that work, Margaret?
You're just saying that you don't want anything spent over $10,000 until the final budget is adopted, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
On capital items, our electric bill is.
Well, yeah, only on.
That's why I say
The functioning
capital
of
item.
the city is fine.
Yep.
Those are expenses that we have to pay, I understand
Right.
that. But anything outside of that, limited amount to $10,000.
Generally, capital expenditures is what that will be.
And
Yeah,
usually
and we
with that
understand that.
large, you approve it anyway,
Yes.
individually, you get the bids that you have to decide on anyway. But
Sure.
Usually you know about it.
Everyone understand that motion?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Anyone, do we have a second then?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, hold it. Tim wanted a roll call vote. Margaret, would you?
Yes. Councilmember Parker?
Yes.
Applegate?
Yes.
Martinez?
Yes.
Santana?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes. Passes 5-0. Okay. Now we're going to adjourn to the meet as the Newman Redevelopment Agency. Can we have a roll call?
Board Member Parker?
Present.
Applegate?
Present.
Martinez?
Present.
Santana?
Present.
Chairperson Reed?
Present. Item on here is 10B, item adopt resolution number 2002, next number, a resolution adopting preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2002-2003.
If you like, I could go over the whole report again.
I'd like that very much. I think it would be a good idea, because I'm sure you missed a number of
I'm
things.
sure it is too.
So we're basically where we were before. and-
Insurance paid up?
Councilmember Parker, would you want a roll call vote on this also, or?
So moved, Mr. Mayor, on this agendized item for redevelopment act.
Okay, did you want a roll call vote?
It's not necessary.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. Now, we come down to items from city manager. Anything left, please?
If I can find it. Just a couple of items I wanted to mention quickly, just for the council's information. I will be out of town Thursday and Friday of this week, and Margaret will be tending the store while I'm gone. So if you have any questions or anything, you can get a hold of me through Margaret if you need to during that time, or I believe all of you have my cell phone number, which I will have with me if you need to contact me. The other item, Ed slipped out on me, but I wanted to mention the next police department barbecue will take place this Friday evening. And I don't have the exact location, but you can probably find it if you drive into the Creek Canyon subdivision. They won't tell me the exact location, but it's not that big.
Don't they have to get a permit?
No.
And a police department. Police department. Okay.
So, for your information, and it'll be somewhere around 6 o'clock. They start rolling in between 5 and 6, and around 6 o'clock when they'll pull up.
You said on
And,
the last one, it didn't happen.
yeah. They had a problem last time, and it got delayed a little bit, but yeah.
No, car broke down. I went over there. Yeah, the transmission went out on the car. Called me and the hot dogs over.
That's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Parker, we'll start with you.
Just on the assignment that I said that I will work with staff with on the town hall meeting, part of our strategic planning. I think the deadline date that we had initially was July. I'd like to extend that to the month of August, and I have some ideas that I've been throwing around, and I'll get to staff with about having the town hall meeting and bring it back to the council for consensus.
Okay. Is that it?
The entry signs look nice to the city. I think the Rotary has done a fabulous job of getting those up. Tom?
Yes, Carol Stevens and Don Hockett mainly, and Mike Brady.
Saw Don today.
Tom, anything?
I just, on the newsletter that talks about new recycling program, you know, since we went to those containers, you know, I've seen a lot more of those black containers out now than we saw stuff at the side of the street. I think a lot of people are starting to use these things because they have something to put it in, because it doesn't blow away in somebody else's neighbor's yard or something. But I see a vast improvement.
I don't know. It depends on what streets you're on. I went down T Street last Friday, a week ago Friday, and there were about 4 or 5 containers out. And then I went down to some of the other streets, and there were a lot of them.
In our area,
So,
every
another
house.
thing about that, now that you mentioned it, there's a lot of them they leave out on the streets. That
We have a city code that says it has to go behind the fence.
that's right.
Well,
And
wait a second, gentlemen.
There's thousands of them that are out there.
There are some
No,
houses
I'm
you
not
got
talking
good.
about sitting out in the street.
Well, I know, but also at the garage and everything else.
Yeah, well,
They're an
at
eyesore.
least, get off the street, and we may have to look into that. Anything else, Tom?
No.
That's it. Tom?
Yes, probably this isn't a question that you can answer, Cleve, but presently, right now, the transit bus that comes into Newman is stopping by the preschool.
Correct.
And I know there's been concern by citizens because of the location that it would be good if we could move it. And I don't know if we carry any weight as a city asking them to move that bus stop, but a good location for it would be down by the park.
The city park, the main park.
The main park. And, there actually is an area there where, it's covered and people could keep out of the rain and everything. And it would not interfere with, there's not any homes in that area, and it just makes a lot more sense. I don't know if it's something that could be accomplished, but...
That is one of its stops, Bob, and they're across from the FDS hall.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't... You say it is right now?
Yeah.
I just don't think having a stop...
They may stop there, Mayor, if there's somebody there, but that's not a listed
That's what I
stop
was
on
going
there.
to say. But
If I can just comment quickly on that, Bob. Funny you should bring it up. We've just gone through a little bit of a study, Public Works Director and the Planning Director. The county contacted us requesting, they're going after some grant money to install bus shelters. And we would be available, currently they have 3 listed stops in Newman that we would be available to put those up. We went back with them to say, yeah, but we need to take a hard look at the bus stops in Newman. For one thing, it currently does not go east of Highway 33, and that was a concern of ours. The comment we got back was, okay, but now is not the time to adjust the bus routes. They look at those once a year, and they're basically saying they can't do it at this time.
You're saying the location where they stop?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, it's just like we put some of those homes, one across from my house. There's a lot of people that take advantage of a neighbor's lawn and stuff like that. That's why it's just not a good location.
Sure.
So you're saying they will not consider it at this time?
I don't believe so unless we
and-
can cite significant complaints that are.
Well, I think
taking
you'll get
place
them as soon as the
Yeah.
preschool goes in.
there. Yeah.
But
I have heard that.
I
too
think
from
that's,
preschool.
it's kind of a dangerous situation too to have a bus stop there, but it's just my own personal feeling.
You will be having a resolution that's going to be coming back to you in, a couple of weeks, Ernie? I forget the exact date. That will be a resolution you have to adopt to approve the bus shelters. So perhaps you can address it, at least bring it up again at that time, and we can forward information to the county at that time.
Yeah. You're aware of what happened to the shelters that were there before?
I, briefly, yeah.
And that'll happen again.
Supposedly these are vandal-proof, but
The-
I've heard that before.
Okay. Okay, I'll let that one go. Now, since I'm on a roll, the skate park.
Yes.
Where do we stand as far as the skate park? Is the skate park being used? Does the city have any feedback as far as if it's still being used?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, we don't know for sure?
Well, I was over there tonight before I came here, and there were probably a half a dozen kids using
Oh,
it
very
at
good.
that time.
Well, that's good news.
When I came in the meeting tonight, Bob, there was
That's
the
good.
most I've seen in a long time, actually.
That's good because, it's something that, we went out of our way.
Right.
And it went through a lot of, discussions as far as putting it there. And of course, it's important that they use it, so that's good. And I think there's been a concerted effort by our law enforcement to direct the children to that area anyway. So I think
It's difficult, but yeah, they're trying.
yeah, I think they have. I've noticed the difference, that we're pressing. Okay, that's all I have.
I just wanted to make a comment on the police car issue. I wish the sergeant was still here, but I guess I just find it hard to comprehend that $780,000 a car is shot. My work truck is my office also, and I'm a farmer, and I have $132,000 on it. And all I've ever done to it is put a transmission. I guess, I'm in dirt and I tow and all that stuff like that. It's just hard for me to comprehend that $780,000 a car is shot.
Well,
I can't understand that.
Stop and go, like the police department does, and the engine is probably running all the time.
If you followed me around
And
all
I'm-
day long.
and
You know,
I'm-
it's just,
No,
you know what I
but-
mean?
yeah.
I understand,
But these
if a
cars
car's
are-
shot, it's
I can
shot.
understand it too.
But I just can't understand it. It just doesn't make sense.
We're hard on cars.
I think they're harder.
I mean, I probably start and stop my truck probably 25, 26
Yeah.
starting, off and on, off and on. Load this up, load that up. Move this,
Look-
move
look-
that.
look at
and
the mail
dirt.
truck.
And, it's hard for me to understand.
Well, see, they don't go out on the highway like a lot of us do and blow that engine out.
Yeah.
They're just
That's the
in town
problem.
driving.
Well,
And the carbon built up on those
If I'm
things.
chasing a hay thief, quite a few sometimes.
John, but you did hear the mileage on the other cars of individual police officers, where it's just strictly their car is considerably higher. I don't know.
But that's because those are cars that they've taken offline that had the high mileage on them, and then they're continuing to use them as pool cars, but
Well,
they were taken off
as
when
Ed
they-
was mentioning about in Ripon, where the officers actually take their patrol car home with them.
right.
And
Some of them do.
when one person drives one car, it probably gets better mileage that way.
Oh, sure.
But
Maybe we have bad drivers, I don't know.
By bad cars.
That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
okay, thank you. A couple of things here. One, Cleve, have you heard any more back from the Stanislaus County Public Works on the dollar ride that you wrote the letter to?
Yeah, I'm trying to set up a meeting with Brad Christian right now. We've been trading phone calls, but
This is something that'll help all over Newman. If we get this dollar ride, that'll be 99% within Newman. Why we're gonna not have to worry about that bus so much. Another thing, are we ready to go out for bids on the plaza design, or have we contacted anyone?
I haven't because it's within the budget, and so that's something that I wouldn't do unless you approve it until after the final budget is approved.
It's probably something we ought to look at doing, at least trying to contact people and getting a price, on it, not a formal bid maybe, but.
Well, I put $25,000 in the budget.
Yeah, I saw that.
And
But,
I think that's, for the conceptual design that we're talking about, I think that's a pretty pretty accurate based on, I have talked to some people about it.
But this is something that we're, if we put this off until the final budget in September, and then we're talking about another month or 2 months to get the bids out and get the bid back in, and then another 6 months to do the work or whatever, we're into almost this time next year.
We could prepare the request for proposals and try to time it right so that, but then not award the proposal until after your final budget.
Because that might be one of the things that's going to be cut.
That would be better. Yeah, that's true. That's true. If we could do something like that.
I'll begin putting that together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one is, Ernie, have you found out anything about moving this entry sign that's down here on the highway up to Hillsbury? The cost of doing it? The old one?
The old one?
Yes.
Last I heard you were going to talk.
I got everything, I
Yeah,
talked to the
you
chamber
got
the other
approval
day.
of it. I
and,
just haven't talked to you about it yet.
And, no, I thought Cleve had.
I hadn't
mentioned
had a
it.
chance to
Okay.
talk to Ernie
All
about
right.
it yet, Mayor.
Anyway, that's something we'd like to see we could do. Okay, that's all I have.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What I came
Opposed?
back for, big bird.
Margaret? Is the sound off?
They should do that anymore.
Do what?
It's really bad.
I want to go back to where each one has their own separate.
Mine are backwards.
Upside down.
Mine are upside down.
That's because Judy wasn't here.
I won't tell you to put it.
I don't put it together, you did.
Actually, no, I didn't, but yeah, I'll take them later.
It's a young man's job, Jim, I tell you that.
But you know, she asked the question probably because basically, I understand